Hello, Garland Nixon here, and there certainly seems to be a change of events, shall we say, in the conflict in the Middle East, wherein Israel got in a pretty good opening punch, but Iran seems to be retaliating rather adeptly. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here, and make sure everything's going well. And so what happened? Let's review what has happened over the last 24, 48 hours. All righty. So what we found out was a number of things. Number one, that apparently the Trump administration, as they were negotiating with Iran, it was effectively the Minsk Accords. That everything they do is effectively the Minsk Accords. If you're familiar with the Minsk Accords with Russia, what did the United States do? Basically, they said, let's make a deal. And Russia said, okay. And for those who don't know the background of the Minsk Accords, there was a battle going on. I think it was the Battle of, I forgot, I think it was Sepultova or Poltava. I forgot the name of I am not good with the names of Ukrainian cities. If you want to get them correctly pronounced, you're going to have to watch the Duran, because Alexander Makoris is, Dnepropetrovsk and stuff. And I'm always like, hey, I didn't even know. Anyway, so, but apparently what happened was that the Donbass militia had what was left of the Ukrainian army, which was like 30,000 people surrounded, and they were going to crush them. And Angela Merkel flew to Moscow and begged for mercy, and they made a deal. And it was all a lie. And later on, Angela Merkel came out, as did Petro Poroshenko, as did, I think it was, I forgot who the other, Hollande, or one of these French guys. All those names, French names, sound the same to me. And ultimately, they all came out and said, well, it was all a lie. We were never going to do that. We just did that to get Russia off of Ukraine's back so we could build up a big army and then come back after them later. Fair enough. It worked. But once that happens don't think that the Russians are going to buy it again. People are like, the Russians are stupid. They're taken advantage of. I'm like, oh, yeah, they believe that if you want to. The Russians have never changed their demands, and the Russians have not stopped punching away at Ukraine. They're doing what they do. Anyway, my point here is part of my point. So apparently, Trump pretty much did the same thing. Hey, let's talk. And we're going to negotiate. And at the time that he was negotiating, they say the Mossad, but Mossad, CIA, MI6, it's all one, right? The Western intelligence agencies, probably the Five Eyes, were working in Iran. It's a huge country. You could do it in any big country. Somebody could do it in America, right? Just think about it. You go to parts of America before weed was legal, and there was these gigantic acres and acres and acres of weed fields. Why? Because they couldn't see, the U.S. is so big they couldn't find it. People would grow giant weed fields. Up in Northern California, they were doing it in state parks. They were in these giant weed fields in state parks, and they couldn't see it because the country's so damn big, right? So most large countries, if somebody really wanted to, they could do that. And apparently, as Trump was pretending to negotiate the whole time, they were prepping this attack. And let's face it, if they were prepping the attack the whole time he was negotiating, they were always planning to do it. They weren't going to build a drone base and build all these drones and do all of these things just to get a deal and walk away from it. The whole negotiation thing was a fraud with Ukraine. Why? Because they never cared about nuclear weapons. They knew Iran didn't want nuclear weapons. This was all a lie. This is about regime change in Iran. Let's face it, they've been saying they were going to do regime change in Iran since like the 80s, for God's sake, since 1979. When the revolution in Iran overthrew the Shah, the U.S. has been trying to do it ever since. So this had nothing to do with nuclear weapons, although it may end up now, because Iran could possibly get nuclear weapons. But at any rate, so here's my point. So that was what we found out. And I think that was significant. People are like, but Garland, I want you to talk about what's going on in Tel Aviv. I think it's very significant because at this point, here's an example. There's an article that is relevant. Let me see. And I want you to see it. I want you to see this article. Watch this one. This is June 13th. Okay. This is relevant. Watch this. Look at this letter. If I can ever figure out what the hell I'm doing, I think my brain is okay. North Korea rejects Trump's letter to Kim. Report. North Korean officials rejected a letter from U.S. President Donald Trump intended to open the door for dialogue with North Korean Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un, according to North Korea base. Right, Trump maintained a personal correspondence with Kim, saying he fell in love after receiving beautiful letters. The pair met 3 times, blah, blah, blah. He wanted to persuade Kim to scale back his nuclear arsenal. He penned a letter addressed to Kim in an effort to resume dialogue. North Korea focused analysis site NK reported, citing an informed, blah, blah, blah. Multiple in-person attempts to the letter were rebuffed. However, by North Korean diplomats based at the U.S. headquarters. Okay, so here's the bottom line. As you will probably start to see more and more now, as Trump said, hey, you want to talk North Korea? And North Korea said, get the hell out of my face. You got to be out of your mind. Now, this was a couple days ago. So this was before the latest iteration of imperial treachery by the United States. But let's just say this. Shortly after Trump got elected, North Korea said something to the effect of, we ain't talking to these people. Those days are over. You can't trust them. They're liars. And I think part of that was about what came out about the Minsk Accords. And let's face it, I mean, you got to be deaf, dumb, and blind not to see what you're dealing with the treachery of the U.S. imperial neocons, right? So now, basically, Trump really, to be quite frank, at this point, no one is going to have an actual dialogue with Donald Trump. The Russians will continue to meet probably if they want to. The Russians will continue to, they're like, yes, we need to do a deal with the Russians. The Russians are smart. Don't underestimate the Russians. They'll continue to play the game and pretend as though, yeah, oh, sure, we're talking. Maybe we'll do another prisoner swap. Maybe we'll trade some dead bodies or something like that. Russians ain't making no. You can't make a deal with these people. As you make a deal, they're like, yes, let's talk. And behind their back, they got a knife waiting to plunge it into your thorax. And everybody in the world knows it now. And Trump's going around, ha, 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 ha. I fooled them. I pretended like I was doing dialogue. I pretended like I was negotiating with them, but really I was setting them up to blow them up the whole time. Ha, 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 ha. Well, yeah. Okay, Trump, fair enough. You got away with that in the immediacy. But that just means that nobody, Mr. Let's make a deal guy, the big deal guy, right? Who in the hell is good, whatever, under any circumstances? Now, not that they should have trusted him in the first place. Nobody should have trusted him or the U.S. Let's not forget, Sergei Lavrov said before the conflict started, to show that the Russians know what time it is. Sergei Lavrov said, the United States is agreement incapable. You think they forgot that? You think the Russians forgot that? Lavrov said, you think they forgot that? But they're going to continue to play the game. Oh, yeah, we're sitting down, we're negotiating. Oh, we're working on all kinds of things. We're giving them papers, they're giving us papers. We're offering deals, they're offering deals. We'll trade somebody that they trade some. But the Russians are going to play that game. It benefits them to play that game. It benefits them to play that game, to keep the doors open and to pretend that there's some potential for making a deal with these treacherous, lying, imperialist monsters. But they know it's not. So I don't want people to say to me, well, they're going to say it anyway. Why are the Russians so stupid? Don't they know? Or, can't they figure it out? I don't know if you've been paying attention. Russian leadership is pretty damn smart, and they have played their hand very well, considering the power that they're going up against the United States and all of the collective West, and then some. Its vassals all over the place, its economic power all over the place, its ability to lean on and push on people all over the place. And the Russian leadership has played their hand unbelievably well. So I'm just going to say anybody who thinks that they're so smart that they're going to oh, I can figure it out. I wonder why Putin and Lavrov can't. Oh, they're so naive. Yeah, well, okay, fine. That's like watching Michael Jordan play a game of one-on-one and then he misses a jumper and you're like, I don't know why Michael Jordan can't shoot. I could beat him. I could have done that. Why can't Michael Jordan do that? You ain't Michael Jordan and you couldn't do it. And everybody misses a jumper every now and then, even Michael Jordan. So my point being, if you see somebody who's really, really good at something, don't think that you're like, you can see it and you're so smart and they can't. No, the Russians know what's going on here, and the Russians are playing their hand the way they need to play it based on their list of priorities. So here's my point. So let's continue. So the U.S., after we got over all of the business about the long-term implications of the treachery of the U.S. empire and the lies, etc., let's get to what's happening on the ground. The Israelis, they do the same thing they did in Russia. The same thing they did in Russia. And no doubt, I think the Chinese now are just saying to themselves, I wonder where the drone base is. That's all the Chinese are saying. The Chinese aren't like, let's see. In the last couple weeks, the CIA had a drone base in Russia, which they used for an attack in Russia. They had a drone base in Iran, which they used to attack Iran internally. I wonder if they do it to us. No, that's not what the Chinese are doing. The Chinese intelligence are like, find that damn drone base. We know it's here. You bastards. We know it's here. Find it. The Chinese intelligence are scouring everything they can because they know it's there. And they know they just got to find it. And you and I know it's there. And you and I know they just got to find it, right? And probably whoever's building the drone base in somewhere China for an internal sneak attack knows, crap, they're looking close for us. So we will see what happens in China. But, and if China finds the drone base, they probably won't tell us. They'll probably just like capture everybody and torture them to talk or something like that, which, I'm opposed to torture and all that. But if I were Chinese and somebody was creating an existential threat to my country, I don't know what I do. I don't have an answer for that. So I ain't judging. I'm just saying, I suspect that will be the outcome. Let me continue. So what happens? So it's again, what do we get into? We get into self-defense. The philosophy of self-defense doesn't matter if it's one person, if it's 10 person or 10 people, or it's a country, right? One of the things about a person who is trained in self-defense, and I talk about this, and this is critical to understand. There's a number of things, but one of the critical things is a person who is trained in self-defense is trained mentally to fight through pain, right? That's why one of the really effective things that a person can do if somebody attacks them, and I've said this, if you can get one of them fingers, man, fingers are not strong, right? And take it in the direction that it doesn't want to go. If you can get that finger, you can even practice. You can go like this, right? You practice getting a finger, and you put your shoulders, put your body. You can get that finger and you can put your shoulder and lean and turn, right? So you don't just turn with your wrist, you got it, but you put that shoulder and you get that finger, bam, and snap the crap out of that finger. You put all your weight on that finger and you take it in the wrong direction and you snap that finger. Why is that so effective? Because most people aren't trained to fight through pain. And they're going to have two things. Trust me when I tell you this. If somebody gets your finger and they put their shoulder in it, and pow, and you hear that snap and the bones coming through the skin, and you look, you got 5 fingers, but one of them's facing south, one of them facing north, and one of them's facing southwest, right? And the bone's sticking through and blood's coming out, and you see that, you'll go into shock. A person who's not trained in self-defense will literally go into shock and they'll no longer be able to fight, right? But a person who's trained, they see it at every fight. If they get in a fight, they know it's a life and death situation because they ain't going to fight unless it's a life. A person who's trained in self-defense is going to say, I don't want any trouble. They're going to try to walk away. But if they have to fight, they know it's life and death. And when you're fighting life and death, you ain't got time to go into shock. Bam, somebody breaks your finger, you're in pain, but instinctively, you're still thinking how you can attack, how you can block, what you can do. Instinctively, this is in pain, but you still got legs and knees and elbows and other ways, and you still got your brain, and you can get something in your hand and hit them with and attack them, or whatever you can do, right? But the bottom line is this. You learn to fight through pain. So here's my point. Israel got a punch. It took a punch. They took a punch. They got a finger broken. Iran took a punch. Israel got in there. They had some bases inside. Apparently, they did some. They had some air defense sabotage. They did some cyber attacks on the air defense. So what did they do? They were able to weaken their air defense systems. They were able to get some punches in on their military leadership. They were able to get some punches. Boom, boom, boom. We got some punches on your military leadership. We got some air defenses. We were able to hit some blah, blah, blah. So day one in the opening hours, they got a punch. Now, Iran shook it a little bit. They got that punch. They cleared their head, right? As in self-defense. Now, what do you want to do? You don't want to stand there and block kicks and punches. You got to come back and hit. That person ain't going to stop fighting. You got to go offensively and you got to strike. You have to go on the attack. You got to throw a flurry at them, right? You can't let them see, oh my gosh, I'm down, I'm hurt. They're going to jump on you in a fight. If somebody, look what happens in a boxing match. Some guy punches a guy, right? And the guy gets a little dazed. What is the boxer trained to do? Start throwing a flurry. That guy's dazed, finish him off. Get him out there. Throw your flurry. A flurry of punches. Don't stop now. Put it all out there and put him out, right? That's what happens. You daze somebody, you attack them. Same way, if you're dazed, what do? The best thing you can do is attack, always, because this guy's coming in on you. He may be open for a punch, but the least is it'll get you off of him. Sometimes throwing a lot of punches, the value of throwing a lot of hits is throwing a lot of punches, throwing a lot of stuff at people is it'll force them to back off you. They won't be able to come in because punches are coming or whatever you got's coming at them, right? Here's my point. Iran takes a hit and critical things are hitting. People are killed. This is that. What does Iran do? We're reassigning. And all countries do that. People are like, oh, they killed the head of the IRGC, this, that, this, and they killed. Yeah, sure. But let me tell you something. If you've ever been in the military or police department or anything, right? I can remember, let's say when I was a captain, there was a major above me. I knew everything the major knew. I wasn't briefed on some of the things that he was briefed on, but I was very, very competent. And if that major crapped out, I could do his job very well, and sometimes better than the major could. Sometimes, everybody there knows that some people have a boss and they're like, my boss is incompetent, and for God's sake, I could do a better job than him, or her, but they got promoted above me, whatever the case may be, right? So just because the head of the IRGC Air Force got killed doesn't mean that the person below him is incompetent. The person below him may be competent. They may be more competent, but they know what the hell they're doing. So what the Iranians do, they took a punch, right? Meanwhile, they got their air defense system back up and going, apparently. They said, you're in charge of here. They already, and in a military situation, it's just like this. If you're on a battlefield and the lieutenant the lieutenant goes down, the sergeant actually automatically goes up, takes his place, right? You have a hierarchy there. The head guy gets killed, the next guy automatically goes in his place, and he knows what his duties are. You got to know your next duties. So trust me when I tell you this. They killed the commander of this, and this, right? Certain military commanders. Now, that might have some public relations value, and I'm not taking anything away from these guys, because undoubtedly they wouldn't have got where they were unless they knew what the hell they were doing. But trust and believe that the guys one step below them knew their jobs and knew it well. So what happens? Iran takes a punch. Boom. Ow, that hurts. We got the men down. It's military, and a person in the military understands, I'm in the military. It's a life and death situation, whether it's on a battlefield or whatever. Every military person knows we need to go down. Russian generals fight at the front. That's why people are like, another Russian general was killed. Well, why is that? Because Russian generals don't sit 50 and 100 kilometers behind it. They go up front. They want to go to the front. They want to fire they want to get under fire. They want to take people back. Russian generals get killed. Why? Because they fight from the front. And they're going to, certainly not all of them, but they're going to go to the front. They're going to get in the thick of things, right? That's the way the Russian philosophy of military fighting is. And I would imagine that probably helps. One of the reasons Russians are so damn tough. When a guy is on the front, see the guy at the top come down and, hey, come on, give me one of the machine guns. Let's fire at them bastards. Whatever, you know what I mean? They're like, whoa, this guy's in here. He's tough. He's ready to get down and get dirty, right? So I'm sure, I say all that to say this: the Iranians, boom, you're up. Every military has that kind of a thing. It's a replacement or a continuity of operations. I've written coup plans. Continuity of operations plans means if you go down, this person automatically comes to this person, this person, this person. And now we heard that the supreme commander or whatever officially named them, but the continuity of operations plan for military is automatic. What happened? The IRGC guy, a commander of the aerospace forces, was killed. Everybody knows who's next on down the line. That everybody there in that hierarchy knows. Well, that means that Muhammad so and so is now in charge. If he gets killed, that means this guy's in charge. If he gets killed, that means that guy's in charge. That's military discipline and hierarchy. So at that point, what happens? It appears to me that within 12 hours or so, something like that, which is pretty phenomenal, shows a high level of professionalism. So it appears that within, say, 12-ish hours, that the Iranians were able to get their feet under them. They were able to get their air defenses back strong, not 100%, but get their air defenses up going again. And to start as, what are you going to do if somebody's swinging at you? You got to start swinging back. Kicking, punching, throwing stuff at. Never just stand there. If somebody's attacking you, never just stand there and throw your arms up. Oh, no, because they ain't going to stop. If somebody's attacking you, come back at them. You got to go back at them. You got to bite, scratch, punch, anything you can do. You got to make it painful for them to attack you. You got to give them a reason to stop attacking you. And you got to say, you've attacked me and you got the first punches, but I'm going to win this fight because I'm attacking you. So obviously, Iran knows that. So what does Iran do? Let's take a look at what we're up against here, what we're looking at. What did Iran do? Let's take a peep on X. So what we're looking at now is some pictures from Tel Aviv, right? You can see here, take a look here, and what do you see? Well, I don't know what the hell that big blast was, but whatever it wasn't fireworks. It wasn't a celebration in Tel Aviv. That appears to be a massive missile. You can see here that there's some kind of a building here, and this thing's getting blown to bloody hell. We go to this side, and what do we see? Apparently, this is a site that was hit. We go here, this is a building. We go here, we see a bunch of guys standing around, more things getting mushed up. This community doesn't look like it's in a very happy situation. We go over here, this looks like another neighborhood that was in a world of deep and serious trouble. And of course, rubble, rubble, toil and trouble from the looks of things. Now, this is just one of many things that we've seen in Israel. But when you see explosions like this, ultimately, you're going to see results like this. So now my understanding is that Iran has launched hundreds of missiles. We saw, if you go online, you can find video. And in that video, you can find everything that you may find interesting. If you go on X or Instagram, Telegram or whatever, what you'll find is videos of all kind of anti-aircraft missile battles in the skies over Iran. Apparently, Iran's anti-air defense systems are coming back online, and we can see them shooting down missiles and things. We even Israel, they've got some propaganda. Propaganda, it is what it is. Iran, Israel, whoever, they've got some propaganda out too, where you see them shooting down missiles, but apparently they ain't shooting down all of them. I saw one video where I think I counted 15 to 18 missiles hitting Israel. Now, what's interesting is this. Apparently, it is being reported broadly, whatever you want to say, that Israel is forbidding people from sending out, from filming the sites of this stuff, and of sending video out online of the damage. Apparently, there's been one Fox News correspondent who was reporting from the scene, and they just stopped it immediately. No more of this. Things getting blown up. Apparently, the equivalent of the Pentagon for Israel in Tel Aviv is in a bad way, shall we say. It was visited by one of these missiles. Apparently, the Israelis are somewhat stunned, I think, I'm reading the things that I read says to me they're somewhat stunned. I don't know why they'd be stunned. Maybe they thought the David sling or whatever this system was going to somehow protect them, but they're getting, in my opinion, now I said mauled. Somebody else said no, they're not getting mauled. They're getting pinched. Well, I mean, I'm you can get out of the thesaurus. Bludgeoned. Can we go with bludgeoned? Can I go with mauled? Pinched, maybe. It's slightly irritated, mildly irritated. I don't know what the word needs to be. But when I see pictures like that, the term mauled comes to mind. And let me say this. I watched a video of, I'm going to say 10 or 15 missiles hitting in what appeared to be one area, right? And it was getting lit up. It was getting lit up. I watched this video and it's like wham, 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 wham. And I'm like counting them and I got up to like 20. And now you could see that there was some anti-aircraft that was blowing up and stopping some, but most of them were just coming through, smacking the ground, right? And when I saw that, I'll look and see if I see that anywhere. When I saw that, I'm like, oh boy, that whatever the target was, it was not good for the Israelis. You were seeing pictures of neighborhoods in Israel that are being blown to crap. So I think that they are getting hit harder than they expected. And they're surprised, and I think that this is just the beginning. Andre Martyanov, I have him on regularly, and he said way back when, I said, what do you think of this? And he said, well, they can't really have a war because A, Israel doesn't have the troops for a ground war. B, what are they going to do? Iran's too big. Are they going to go attack Iran's ground forces in Iran? They're going to get, obliterated. I mean, they're losing, they go up against Hezbollah on the ground, they lose. They go up against a bunch of guys in Hamas who, only have very light weapons, and they take, some pretty good hits. So God knows they don't want to go against the IRGC on the ground in Iran. They get obliterated, right? So they can't really do a ground war. So as Andre says, all they can do is stand back and throw things at Iran. As he said, the two sides can throw things at each other, which is a good way of putting it. And the question becomes this: as they throw things at each other, who can do it the longest? I think that's it. If they throw things at each other. Now, there are people who are saying, will the U.S. get involved? Well, that's another thing that I don't know. We don't know the answer to that. A lot of people feel that's a definite. I don't know the answer to that. It's possible. You can argue, yeah, it's likely. But I'll put it let me put it like this. When we see that happen, we can address it then. The one thing I found, since the special military operation in 2022, and that is, I've been wrong so many times that I got to just go with, let's see what happens, and we'll go with that. Because if you're in this business, you're probably going to be wrong more than you're right, unless you're totally cynical and you're Mark Sloboda, because then Mark Sloboda is always cynical. And if you're that cynical, you're mostly going to be right about 90% of the times. If you're like, the worst crap can happen, everything's going to go to hell. And you're like, unfortunately, professional cynics like Mark Sloboda, unfortunately, more often than not, get it right. But we love Mark Sloboda, so he's great. We can all learn from Mark Sloboda, the wit and wisdom of Mark Sloboda, right? Let's continue. Initially, to add this, there was great weeping of gnashing of teeth. Iran got hit, and there was a question: will they even be able to respond? Was it a decapitation strike? Were they put out of business and now they can't respond? And my immediate response internally, intellectually, I think, was everything that I've learned was that the Iranians had a lot of bases hidden in the mountains loaded with missiles way, way below the surface, and that they could use those to light Israel up, even if Israel nuked Tehran. And even these bases are so deep, some of them are so deep underground that even a nuclear weapon, wouldn't take them out. And there's so many of them and they don't know where they are. And of course, we see what happened with Yemen. Yemen is launching missiles. Now, Yemen's still launching missiles at Israel, right? So let's face it, the U.S. and Israel bombed Yemen. The Saudis bombed Yemen for 7 years, and Yemen is still launching missiles. So the bottom line is this: what can we learn from that? That bases and war material can be hidden underground in the mountains, and you can bring it out and fire it and then go back in and hide. And they just, if you can't go put troops on the ground, you ain't going to stop that. And so there was a lot of people that was like, Iran screwed, they're done, they're toast, they're finished. Israel got the first punch in. And I kind of was like, well, let's see what happens. And Iran said, we will respond. And my thing was like, let's see what happens. I don't know. Everybody's awful jumpy, and everybody's like, oh, the Iranians have been blindsided, and they're done, and how could they not see it coming, etc. And my thought is this: look, man, you can take a punch. If somebody sneaks you, you go into a bar and you get, as they say, somebody steals you. You're looking over here. Hey, what's that? Whap! Holy crap. Now, it may be that people could say to you, come on, you knew that guy was a jerk. You knew he didn't like you, and you knew he was going to take a swipe at you. Why weren't you ready? Well, somebody can say that, and they might be right. And you might say, in hindsight, you're right. I should have known that guy was going to punch me. But at the time, I didn't. And he stole me. He got a punch when I wasn't looking. I gathered myself together. And once I kind of got my act together, I said, okay. Oh, so that's what we're doing? We're going to walk up and steal somebody? Let's do this. Right? Or you don't say that to him. You just kind of like fake a little bit. And as he gets close enough, wham! You know what I mean? Knee to the groin. Tap. Whatever you got to do. You get something in your hand, a table, a chair, blam, you blop them over the head, whatever. You defend yourself in any way you can, right? But my point being is this: just because somebody got in a punch on somebody, just because somebody stole somebody, got a sucker punch on somebody, sometimes it knocks people out. Sometimes a sucker punch will knock some people out, and sometimes it don't. And sometimes when you sucker punch a person, you don't knock them out, and they get themselves together. You just stirred up a bee's nest. I put it like this: if you sucker punch them, you better knock them out. You sucker punch somebody, you better knock them out. You better hit them so hard that they're not able to respond, because if they are, they aren't going to be mad. And so the Iranians, as a professional country, as a professional military, took a punch. And let me say this. That's what a good military is trained for, isn't it? A good military is not supposed to be soft. A good military is not supposed to be trained to fight in optimal conditions. Right or wrong? I'll put it to you like this. If it's self-defense, would you just only train? Well, I can fight somebody if they're smaller than me or my size. I can fight somebody if there's good weather. I can fight somebody if I'm dressed in my gi. You know what I mean? I am dressed in my loose-fitting clothing. I have had a chance to warm up my hand, I move my hips around, and I'm all warmed up. I've swung my arms in all different directions. If somebody attacks you, it's not going to be optimal conditions. You're coming out of a play, you got on a suit and tie and slick shoes and all that, and somebody attacks you. You must be able to defend yourself. And it's raining and it's dark and everything. You must be able to defend yourselves in, shall we say, suboptimal conditions, right? So the key to judging whether Iran's military is a good military, is a professional military, is not if the Israelis say, okay, we're going to attack you, and we're going to do it actually Thursday at about 3 a.m. Right? Okay, fine. We'll be ready. Thanks. That's not the way it works. The judgment of a good military is what? Is if you get snuck up on. Man, they got a drone base on you. They got this. They sucker punched and took out a couple of your leaders. They did this and that. Suboptimal conditions. A good military is trained to fight specifically in suboptimal conditions. So the idea that they knocked Iran out, if Iran was a poorly run military, yes. If it's a good military, it is specifically trained. It's got a continuity of operations plan. It's trained if it gets hit with a nuclear weapon. It's trained if this happens. It's trained if that happens. It's got plans for everything. Contingency plans. What if this happens? What if that happens? All these contingency plans are set ahead of time. So, as a good military would be trained, they got sucker punched. Bam. They got lied to. They got cheated. They got deceived. They got punched from behind. They hit cyber attacks, drones, this, that, boom, 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 boom. And what do? They shook it off. Okay, we got to hit. Now what do we do? All right, you're in charge. You're in charge. You're do here. prepare these missiles. You get over there and you're in charge of getting our air defense back up. Let's do all the inspections of our air defense sites. Let's do this, let's do that. So that as quickly as possible, we got to hit back. We can't just say, because the Israelis will be like, yes, here comes another wave, and there's another wave of attacks coming, and we will just keep doing wave after wave, because that's what the Israelis, they were like this, we'll just do wave after wave of attacks at Iran. Ha, 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 we can do this all day. And the Iranians are like, okay, well, you can do it for a little while, but not without cost. So the Iranians get on their feet, and missiles start smacking down in Israel, and now we see that it is with a cost. Here's what's interesting too. The Israelis have said things like they're attacking civilian areas. Let me address that briefly. You put all of your air defense systems, you put your military headquarters, your IDF headquarters, your intelligence headquarters, you put all of those in civilian areas, knowing that when there's a military confrontation, they will be attacked in those civilian areas, and then you can then say they attack civilian areas. Oh, wait a minute. Does Israel attack civilian areas? Constantly, consistently. In fact, all they attack are civilian areas, constantly and consistently. And now they're whining that, oh, they're attacking civilian areas. Well, you know what? And they just attacked civilian areas when it came to Iran. So you know what Iran's doing? Iran's saying, okay, fair enough. There was a what was the name of that movie? I can't remember, but it was really hilarious, right? It was a Western some years ago. And in the Western, here's what happened. There's the two groups of guys. And so finally they decide that your best guy's got to fight our best guy, right? That's the way it's going to work. So the one guy who is a regular sized guy comes out and he's like, okay, let's go. The other guy comes out. So the other side, these other group of guys, they send their guy out, and he's a big, like 6'7", 270-pound monster, big old cowboy, spits, pulls out a great big, Sylvester Stallone Rambo knife. Man, this thing must have been that long. It was just shy of a sword, right? And he's like, and so the regular sized guy is like, oh shit, this is not going to be good. So he says to the big guy, he says, okay, they're standing off. And he says, okay, let's first establish the rules. And the big guy spits. There ain't no rules. And the little guy kicks him right in the groin. Wham! Says, okay, have it your way, right? Okay. Big guy falls down. The little guy beats the hell out of him, right? Kicks him right straight in the groin. Yeah, rules. All right. Hey, not a problem, right? My point being, Israel can whine in the Western media. Oh, they're hitting civilian areas. They're doing this. They're doing that. Iran's position is going to be, you establish the rules, and the rules are there ain't no rules. So why don't you just keep whining the BBC that we're doing this or that, or we're violating the international law, for God's sake. We're doing all kinds of things. This is an unprovoked attack on Israel, and we're anti-Semitic. You keep doing that, and we'll keep throwing missiles at you. So I think where we are now, is we are in a situation where Israel and Iran are going to be throwing exactly what Andre Martianov said. They're going to be throwing stuff at each other from a long distance. Something else that is of great notice, shall we say? Let's just say something that's remarkable. I will remark on it. It is deserved of a remark. And that is apparently 1 to 3 Israeli planes have been shot down. At least 1 and maybe all 3 were F-35s, the stealth F-35s. As I said, Iran seems to be really getting its air defense systems back online. So the F-35, which is supposed to be this great thing, and it's really, really expensive and all that kind of stuff. That's the part about it. But there are people who refer to it as the flying piano, saying it's not a good plane. It flies, pilots say it flies like a piano, which is obvious. Pianos don't fly. So I think that's an embarrassment. I would like to know what kind of system shot it down or them down. There are reports at this time that the Iranians have captured an Israeli pilot that's a female. We don't know if that's true yet. And we can continue. Let's see if there's anything else. I'm searching Telegram. It appears there's not a lot going on. So the bottom line, apparently Israel is attacking. I see that Israel attacked a oil refinery. Apparently, the Iranians have attacked some kind of an oil or gas platform. So one of the interesting things about this particular conflict is that let's see. Iran's Ministry of Petroleum confirmed the airstrikes that one of their refineries was hit and a gas facility was hit. It says fires caused have been contained. So the bottom line is the Israel will hit some infrastructure. Iran will hit some infrastructure. One of the things I think about the long term, if they just sit back and throw stuff at each other, one of the issues is going to be this. Iran's a lot bigger, which means that Israel has fewer targets. For instance, I think it's the size of New Jersey, right? Let's say it's 5 or 6. My understanding is they got 5 or 6, like a half a dozen electric generating facilities, right? Electric plants. So if they lose them, you know what I mean? If they get knocked out, the whole country is dark. And so if they decide that they want to start knocking out, see, that's the thing about it. If they decide that they want to start knocking out power plants, Iran's going to knock out power plants. If they decide that they want to knock out water producing facilities, Iran's going to knock out water producing facilities. The problem is Iran's got a hell of a lot more of them because it's a much bigger country with a much more infrastructure. It's got 90 million people as opposed to the, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 million people, whatever the hell they got in Israel. So there are a lot more targets, but they can take a lot more hits. So that's where we are now. Let's talk about the questions before we finish. Question 1, the discussion is, will Israel go nuclear? Well, there's no way we can know or control that. Who knows? And my belief now, there's a philosophical understanding of what Israel is that I think I got to touch on. It comes down to this. Is Israel something separate from the United States? Is Israel truly a separate country that acts of its own volition, that has its own independence, that has its own agency, that doesn't listen to the United States and just goes out and does whatever it wants? Or is Israel effectively an affiliate of the U.S. empire? Is it as has been said, what's the term? Unsinkable aircraft carrier. In other words, but what is an aircraft carrier, right? If you use that, Alexander Haig said it, others have said it. If it is the quote unsinkable aircraft carrier, that means that it is a tool of projection for the U.S. empire. It's something that the U.S. uses to project power. If I'm calling Israel an unsinkable aircraft carrier, that means that I don't view Israel as a separate entity. That's my aircraft carrier. I appoint the admiral of the aircraft carrier. I arm the aircraft carrier. I pay for the aircraft carrier. It's mine. An aircraft carrier doesn't go out and the United States say to the captain and the admiral, whatever's in charge of the aircraft, the flotilla, right? Hey guys, we want you to go to the Mediterranean. And the guy in charge of it says, nah, I think we're going to go somewhere else. That's not the way it works. An aircraft carrier is controlled by the people back at the Pentagon or DC or whatever, right? But it's not an autonomous thing. And the fact that powerful politicians have on many occasions have referred to Israel as the unsinkable aircraft carrier, that Joe Biden literally said, if Israel did not exist, we would have to create it to address our interest in the region. That tells me something. I disagree with those who say Israel's the dog wagging the tail. Israel's a separate country. Israel's telling us what to do. Think about this. People like me who have been arguing this for a long time, think about this. We were told that Netanyahu and Trump are having a spat, right? We were told that Trump doesn't like Netanyahu, that Trump is telling Netanyahu not to do this, attack Iran, but Netanyahu really wants to attack Iran, and Trump and is fighting against him, right? So what we were told was there was a spat, that Israel had its own agency, that Israel wanted to do things, and Trump didn't want them to, but they were fighting about it. Think about this. But what did we ultimately find out? We found out that there was no spat, that there was no disagreement, that they were 100% on board, that the whole time, the months and months and months that they were supposed to be talking, they were supposed to be discussing the possibility of a deal, that the U.S. was setting up drones to attack them. So the whole time it was a lie. And Trump knew it, Netanyahu knew it, and they were working in concert. But we were told that they weren't getting along and they were fighting it out. You see my point? My point is this. That's the whole game. The whole game is we're told we can't trust the Israelis because they're crazy people. We don't know what they'll do. They're a mad dog. We can't control them. But the whole time you were controlling them, weren't you? You were 100% on board with them. My argument, I'll never forget, the Israelis blew up a hospital early. And the world got all pissed off, and all these countries said, "What are you doing? That's madness." And a couple of Americans said, "Yeah, they shouldn't do that." And the Israelis came out and they said, "Wait a minute. Tony Blinken sat in a meeting with us, and he approved that target. He approved all of our targets. So how can the Americans say that we're doing something wrong when the Americans approved our target?" And I looked at it and I'm like, that's the way it is with everything. That's the whole game. It is what is now implausible deniability. The U.S. can say they're crazy people. We can't control them. We disagree with them. They're out of control. But always, it's a lie. Everything that Israel does is coordinated with the United States. In fact, my argument is they act in service to the U.S. empire. And the game that they play very effectively on the American people is that there's something different. They're outside the empire and they're acting of their agency. And we're listening. Why are we listening to them? And they're pushing us around. That's a game. It's a fraud. They're always working together. Wake up. This whole time was a fraud. Everything about it was a fraud. Trump pretending they're fighting was a fraud. Pretending they weren't on the same page was a fraud. In fact, they've come out and admitted that even some of the things that happened in the media was part of the game they were playing. We know the media works with them. So the U.S. empire is like, okay, here's the game. We got to pretend that we're fighting against Israel. We want you guys to report all of that. Great, we're going to report it. We want it on the nightly news, and we want everybody to say Trump and Israel are fighting, and they're not. Trump and Netanyahu don't get along. Great, report that constantly. Got that. New York Times, we need a story. Washington Post, yeah, we're on it. Okay, great. Then I'll go to the Middle East, and when I'm there, I'm not going to meet Netanyahu, and everybody will then say, well, he didn't even meet Netanyahu. Oh, they must be battling. Great, perfect. We'll have that going. Okay. While they think we're fighting, you guys, CIA, Mossad, are you on it in Iran? Yes, we're building the base to attack them. Great. How much time you need? We need 60 days. Great. I'll handle that. I'm going to give Iran 60 days. They have 60 days to take a deal. All right. What are you going to do if they take the deal? I will just change it because let's face it, we're going to attack them anyway. Great. So what does Trump come out? 1 week. Yeah, they can't have anything. The next week, I think we're close to a deal. The next week, wow, they're not going to be allowed enrichment. The next week, well, maybe we'll go with 3.67. The next week, nah, we changed our mind to nothing. Why are they doing that? Why are they changing every other day? Why was it every other week with Trump he was changing? Because the whole thing was a fraud. But we are sitting here like, oh, Trump doesn't know what he's doing. He's an idiot. Look at this. 1 week, he's like, yeah, I think we can go with 3.67 enrichment. And then the next thing he's tweeting, no enrichment whatsoever. And we're like, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's an idiot. That was the game. Oh, he's inconsistent. No, he wasn't inconsistent. He wasn't inconsistent. None of it was true. They were buying time to ensure that they had their attack set up. As they said, it's the old fake diplomacy of saying good doggy until you can find a rock. That's all they were doing. How much time do we need? We need another 30 days. All right. Let's tell the Iranians we'll meet them in wherever, Schenectady, for God's sake. Let's tell the Iranians we're going to meet them in 2 weeks. That way, that'll give us 2 weeks, and then we can talk to them, kill another 2 weeks, then we'll be ready to attack them. Fair enough. All right. Yeah, we're going to meet with the Iranians. We think we can get a deal. A deal is imminent. We're going to have a deal. That's Trump. That's all they did. The whole thing was a fraud. Now, here's my point. If we now come to the conclusion, seems fairly obvious, that this operation was started about a year ago. Trump knew it when he came in office. The entire time he was in office, he was working in concert with Israel to do this. And at times, part of the concert they were playing was to pretend to be adversaries, pretend to be fighting, pretend to be disagreeing, right? So we know that was going on for the last 5-6 months while Trump was in office, right? And probably from when he got elected in November, he was briefed then what was going on. He knew all that crap, and he was lying to the people that was voting for him. He was lying to everybody. He was lying to and the media was in on it. So this is what we know. So here's an obvious question. If all of that was a fraud, if all of that was lies, and he was working with Israel the whole time, isn't it obvious that's always been the case? Isn't it obvious that that's always the deal? Isn't that obvious that whenever we're told that they're fighting, they're not getting along, they're disagreeing, oh, they're trying to figure this out, they're working with something? Tony Blinken, oh, well, perhaps they shouldn't have bombed that hospital. Israel, what the hell is he talking about? He was sitting on the meeting and he approved the targets. Ooh. Isn't it clear that's always the case? That this is the game. Tony Blinken might have forgot to call Israel. Hey guys, yeah, look, just want to let you know, I'm getting ready to go on the air and I'm going to say I disapprove of you guys bombing the hospital. So keep your mouth shut. Don't tell anybody I'm in on it. All right, thanks a lot. He forgot to do that. He didn't brief the Israelis what he was going to say. And they're like, hey, well, what the hell are Blinken? God told us to do it. He's like, hey, there's a hospital right there. Yeah, blow it up. Kill everybody. Okay, Mr. Blinken. Thanks for our orders. We're following them just as you told us. And there were those of us saying, for God's sake, guys, wake up. The U.S. is giving them, what kind of planes are they flying? Oh, that's right, American planes. What kind of bombs are they dropping? Oh, American bombs. And who's training them? The U.S. Oh, but they're a completely independent nation. That has nothing to do with the U.S. Americans got to wake up and understand that Ukraine and Israel are they're the same thing. They're just a proxy military to be used. And let me add this before I go. You know what's interesting about it now? And that is the whole time they fattened the goose Israel up, right? The Israelis. Ultimately, when it came down to it, in the same way that many of us say, they're like, we've got to support Ukraine. And we look at that hellhole that's Ukraine, a Nazi-infested crap hole. We look at Ukraine and it's getting blown to hell. It's entire the youth, the men of Ukraine are being wiped out literally by the millions. We look at Ukraine and we say, for God's sake, if that's supporting Ukraine, I don't want the U.S. to support me. If we're supporting Ukraine, and how's it working out for Ukraine? When the U.S. supports you, you're gonna get your ass kicked. You're going to get blown to hell, torn to shreds, wiped out, and destroyed. That's how the U.S. is supporting Ukraine. They fattened them up. And guess what? It's Thanksgiving. It's Christmas. And the goose is fat. What happened to the goose? Welcome to dinner, goose. You're the main course. The whole time they were fattening you up, it wasn't because they liked you or you were their friends. They were fattening you up because at some point the feast was coming and you were going to be the sacrificial lamb. Okay? Israel. Yeah, we love Israel. We'll do anything for Israel. We love the Jewish people. Now, the West has, let's face it, historically, wasn't the West the place where the Holocaust originated, right? The most anti-Semitic area of the world was always the West. And now these so-called, the anti-Semitic area of the world are so-called the defenders of the Jewish people. Fair enough. Let's say we go with that. Here's my question. How's that working out for Israel? Their economy, they don't have one. They got to cook the books and write fake stuff to pretend as though their economy is good. They don't have an economy. The only thing they got is the U.S. pumping money into there, pumping food, pumping this and that, right? Number one. Number two, All the young men are mobilized, so they're all fighting, getting shot up, killed, blown up, etc., traumatized, PTSD, committing suicide. And of course, anywhere they go in the world, people are going to be like, wait a minute, didn't you fight in the IDF a couple of years ago in Gaza? Yeah. War criminal. Is that how you want to live the rest of your life? Did you go around what you did? Well, I fought in the IDF during the war against Gaza where we killed everybody. Get out of this restaurant. Your kind ain't welcome here, right? What kind is that? Murderers. Get out. They will be rejected for the foreseeable future as human beings, as genocidal monsters, right? So, Israel got fattened up, and it's their turn to be Ukrainized. They were the original Ukraine. They were the original proxies, and proxies are always nothing but cannon fodder. Hello, Taiwan. How you doing? So what's going on now? It's Christmas time, and now the cannon fodder is being deployed. They're deploying Israel. We've been setting Israel up. We've been paying them. We've been giving them money, giving them all of this stuff, telling them, "Oh, we just love you, Israel. We love you, love you, love you." And now it's time for war in the region. Okay, we love you so much, we're going to throw you into war for years, and it's a time to fight Iran. But wait a minute, Iran has missiles. They can hit us night and day with missiles. Yeah, you're just going to have to take it. All the money that we've given you, all this thing that we've done for you, Israel, for the last, since 1945 or whatever. Yeah, time to pay up, Israel. Time to pay up. And now, can Israelis travel in the Middle East? No. Can they travel any damn where? I'm an Israel. I wouldn't want to say I'm an Israeli anywhere on earth. So my point being, it's time to pay up, proxy. It's time for the proxy to pay up. And when proxies have to pay up, it don't work out well for the proxy. And so now we've got Israel, who is, now they're going to face the music when it comes to lots and lots of missiles hitting them day and night for probably weeks. So some potential outcomes. I'll end up with a couple of potential outcomes. One, of course, is a nuclear apocalypse. I believe, based on the argument that I just made, that Israel has no agency, based on the argument that I made that Israel is not that independent, I believe that the U.S. has the final say on Israel's nukes. I think so. I think Israel, and if that's the case, then Israel may start throwing nukes around, but I don't think the U.S. will let them, because I think the U.S. has the keys. I mean, if you look around, look at nukes in Germany, nukes all over the place. The U.S., there's nukes in U.S. nukes in England, but the U.S. has the keys. England can't fire them. Maybe I'm wrong. It's an assumption I have that the U.S. has the keys to the Israeli nukes, and Israel can't find them. And the U.S. don't give a damn if Israel gets turned into flattened and obliterated. That's what they're there for. They're proxy. Israel is cannon fodder, and now that cannon fodder is being deployed. And now they got them they have put them in a fight with a bigger, more powerful country. And the Israelis, as they've said about some of the countries in Europe, if you play a Doberman on TV long enough, if a chopped Chihuahua plays a Doberman on TV long enough, it'll think it's a Doberman, but it ain't a Doberman. It's still a Chihuahua. And Israel thinks they're this super military power, but I feel as though, based on what I'm seeing, Iran's going to be able to rain missiles on them for a long, long time. And I think Iran can continue to punish Israel longer than Israel can punish Iran. I also think that Trump does have oddly enough, a reverse gear. I do think if Trump looks at the situation and he feels that it ain't in his best interest to continue, that he would call it off. Not that he will or won't, but I think that's at least a remote possibility. That's a remote possibility at some time that Trump says, this is getting too expensive, especially politically. I think that there's probably a strong potential for the U.S. getting dragged into it. And by dragged into it, I mean Israel's getting pummeled so bad, and it appears as though what they're doing is not working at all, that their regime change plan is not working. And so the U.S. says, all right, we're going to go in there. We're going to do it now. If the U.S. really gets involved, you can look for the closure of the Straits of Hormuz, and you can look for severe economic pain at home, which ain't going to work out well for Trump either. that at that point, his base I think it's just a matter of time before his base erupts. But I think that's going to happen, particularly if they feel economic pain. If the Iranians, now I'm reading that the Iranians have said they'll flatten the American bases, that the Iranians have also said they are considering closing the Straits of Hormuz. I think that's an elbow, that's a brushback to the United States and the West, right? I think that's something to say, look, we're fighting Israel, we're throwing missiles back and forth. It is what it is. We always knew this was a possibility. If Israel decides they're going to throw a nuke at us, or if you guys decide you're going to get in it and try to take us out, if something like that happens, understand you open a can of whoop ass that you don't want. And pain is coming home. The economic pain is coming home bad. Donald Trump, do you want that? If Americans wake up and they're paying $10, $15, $20 a gallon, it ain't going to be a pretty sight here. You talk about riots. You talk about people in the street burning things down. The intelligence agency won't have to stick the usual pile of bricks. They won't have to shove a pile of bricks in just the right place so people can find them and hurl them at the police. Yeah, they won't have to go through that if people are paying $15 a gallon. That'll be handled for them. People will take these buildings apart brick by brick to throw them at them. So, we will see. We don't know where the hell this is going to go, but let's keep an eye out and continue to follow these things and do the best we can do. Let me look. We got a lot of people here, and I'm going to see. Wow, boy, we got 2,100. We got a lot of viewers here, and there's some super chats somewhere, and I think we're going to see if we can find them, and if we can, we will answer. Let me see here. Let me see here. I'm trying to find the super chats, and I'm not always as good at these things as I need to be, and maybe there are no super chats. Maybe that's why I'm having so much trouble finding them, because, if people are going to go through that trouble of putting in $5 or something, whatever the hell, the least I could do is be nice enough to answer their questions. So far, oh, was that something? There we go. Well, thank you, Lana Zinkova Garcia. Well, that's awesome. All right, let me look. Now, it's not a question, but once I see one, and if I see one, I'll answer it. The great thing about this medium, and the great thing about this medium is that the people in the chat are part of the conversation, that they can have a conversation of their own outside of the prattle and foolishness that I'm discussing. All right. Jim Brown, one of my favorite players, says, so Israel is like the Federal Reserve. I like that. Jim Brown's he's not just a great football player. He's a really smart guy. I like that. All right, let's keep going. Or is it somebody besides Jim Brown? Maybe O.J. Simpson? All right. John Riggins, I don't know. Okay, that's it. Do we have any Rumble Rants? We got Rumble Rants. All right. CHP0 says Iranian gas fields and oil refineries hit on fire. They was followed by hitting regional fields. Buckle up. Sure, that's what I expect. One of the things, things that I expect to happen is I expect, and see, this is what's different for the U.S. empire. This is what's different for Israel, right? And the U.S. empire. Usually they just say, oh yeah, well, we'll go in there and we'll hit your gas fields. But the Iranians have the capability to retaliate in kind. That's one of the things that's different. When they hit your gas fields, and what the Iranians will say, okay, we'll hit yours. We're going to hit your refineries. Okay, you got refineries, we'll hit yours. We'll hit your water treatment plants. If you hit our infrastructure, we'll hit your infrastructure. That's kind of one of the differences here. And Israel's small. They ain't got as much infrastructure. So let's see where this goes. They're going to hit Iran, and Iran's going to keep paying them back. I guess we'll see. Someone says Bibi has done 10 times worse than all of the leaders demonized by the West. Why? Because he is, what he is. What was it? Was it Nixon who had like the crazy man theory, where he's like, I want people to think I'm a madman, I'm a crazy person? And of course, we look at that. That's somewhat employed by the Russians. Dmitry Medvedev, he was the madman, right? So Putin was the guy who was reasonable, and Medvedev would come out and say, let's nuke them, let's kill them all, you rotten bastards, right? So it's not unusual for that ploy to be used. It's an old one. And, you know, the idea that, oh, Netanyahu's a bad guy, Netanyahu's a jerk, Netanyahu's an idiot. What are you going to do? I'm going to give him everything he wants. I'm going to bring him in here. I'm going to give him a standing ovation in Congress. Whatever he asks for, we'll give him twice what he wants. We love him, love him, love him. And then we'll say, but he's a bad guy. He's a jerk. We hate him. You know, the game, it's a game. Netanyahu, and they're like, he's a sociopath. They wouldn't have put him in power and kept him in power if he wasn't a sociopath. Look at the people in Ukraine. They got a bunch of goose-stepping, Hitler-tattooed neo-Nazis running around in power, supposedly, faking like they're the ones in power. So, looking at the people in power in Ukraine, look at Netanyahu. It's the same guy. Always the same guy, some fascist, crazy lunatic. And the U.S. puts him in power and then says, oh my God, the man's a fascist, crazy lunatic. We can't control him. You put him in power because he is a fascist, crazy lunatic and because you can control him. But you want me to believe that you can't. So I don't pay attention to what you're doing. I pay attention to the person. And you have implausible liability. It's implausible for people like us because we're like, you're lying. But meanwhile, they go on CNN and they say, oh, Netanyahu, we can't control him. And everybody goes, well, I wonder what we're going to do. Netanyahu, we can't control him. What are we going to do? He's a madman. What are we going to do? We're going to give him everything he asked for and then some. Because we can't control him and we don't know what he's going to do next. Oh, except we're working with him the whole time and it's all a big plot. But we can't control him. We couldn't control him when we were planning all of this stuff. Time to move in, time to grow up and move on from that. All right, let's keep going. I'm going to finish up. That's it. Wow. 1,898 people. We had 21 people. I'll end up by saying this. Thanks, everyone, for looking, for watching. Follow me on Rockfin. Follow me on Rumble. Follow me on Telegram. If you can afford it, you can use Patreon. You can use PayPal. Buy me a coffee is always great. That's an easy one. Buy Garland a coffee. How much? $5. How many coffee? However many. 1, 1 million. I don't know what the hell I know. And ultimately, then it's just like Patreon. You can say, hey, guess what? I want to make this monthly. So you can do Patreon. You can do that. If you can do monthly, that's great. Certainly appreciate it. We got PayPal stuff. Also follow me on Substack. I'm going to get a Substack article here out within the next 24 hours. An interesting one. I think you're going to love that one. Really interesting one. And of course, my P.O. Box number, P.O. Box 32, Glen Burnie, Maryland. You can email me letters. Oh man, someone just emailed me this really, really long, I don't know how many pages letter. It's so good. It is so good that I want to get it turned into a book. Really good. So people send me some good stuff. I mean, somebody wrote something up. I don't know how many pages it is. It's so good that I'm looking at it and I'm like, that needs to be a book. This person's brilliant. So who knows? Maybe you're brilliant. Write something up and send it to me. Send me a book. Send me whatever. If you want to send a donation via snail mail, there's my P.O. Box. Whatever. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks a lot, Chicken Patty. Thanks a lot, Myra Page. Thanks a lot, Sparky. Everybody. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Share this on all your social media platforms. I'm out.